Norman Finkelstein tweeted out Ben Shapiro's final solution. This is true. Ben Shapiro wrote this. So there's a link right here to this article he wrote, I think back in 2013, or I don't know when, maybe 2015. So I did go and read it. And he does say what Norman Finkelstein says he says. And here's what Norman Finkelstein says he said. He said, this is what Ben Shapiro said. If you believe that the Jewish state has a right to exist, then you must allow Israel to transfer the Palestinians and the Israeli Arabs from Judea, Samaria, Gaza, and Israel proper. It's an ugly solution, but it's the only solution. Oh, he said that in 2003. He then went on to say, if Israelis don't openly avow this goal, it's because they are afraid that if they expel the Arabs, they will be called Nazis. Turns out a legit fear. Turns out it seems that Israelis are no longer afraid, and they're no longer afraid of that. Indeed, senior Israeli officials have called for wiping out Amalek and making Gaza uninhabitable. Is it okay, Mr. Shapiro, to now call them Nazis? Here's Ben Shapiro's final solution. That's kind of a great turn of phrase by Norman Finkelstein.
Number one, what you seem to be describing as a new development, namely Israel's indiscriminate assaults in Gaza, that's hardly a new development, with all due respect to you. Israel, from literally day one, set out as its goals. So I can quote, first of all, the defense minister: there will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we are acting accordingly. Now, that was not directed at Hamas. That was directed at the entire population of Gaza. I think your listeners understand what is the consequence of denying a civilian population all water, all food, all fuel, and all electricity. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that is a recipe for genocide. Number two, you quoted, or you had on, Douglas Murray, who made a distinction between what he called the deliberate targeting of civilians versus the indiscriminate targeting of civilians. Not to want to sound pedantic, but Israel's leading authority on international law is a fellow named Yoram Dinstein, who I'm sure Alan Dershowitz knows. And Mr. Dinstein, or Dr. Dinstein, he stated that there is no fundamental difference under international law between the deliberate targeting of civilians and the indiscriminate targeting of civilians. There is no substantive difference. Therefore, under international law, according to Yoram Dinstein, Israel is targeting the civilian population of Gaza. That's another indication from the get-go, not from yesterday, not from when it was revealed to President Biden, but from the get-go, Israel has been engaging in a genocidal war in Gaza. Now, the genocidal war takes various forms. Again, I'm going to cite you old quotes. So let's take Giora Eichmann, who was the head of Israel's National Security Council, the equivalent of our CIA. And he said, quote, Israel needs to create a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Gaza will become a place where no human being can exist. Now, I'm not here to try to persuade Mr. Dershowitz or Professor Dershowitz. I am here to try to enlighten your listeners. So I would like them to cogitate, to meditate over what does it mean to say Gaza will become a place where no human beings can exist. Mr. Eichmann, the former head of the National Security Council, went on to say, severe epidemics in the south of the Gaza Strip will bring victory closer and reduce casualties among IDF soldiers. And then there is Mr. Netanyahu, the prime minister. Not on one occasion, not from the spur of the moment, but twice in national addresses to the nation, very soberly, Mr. Netanyahu said, "Remember what Amalek did to you. This is a war between the sons of light and the sons of darkness." Now, as Professor Dershowitz surely knows, because he attended Hebrew school, actually he grew up just a few blocks from me, or I should say I grew up a few blocks from him because he's older. He surely knows that in the midst of a war, in a country that is schooled in the Bible, that when you say your enemy is Amalek, then you are calling for the destruction, the killing of every man, woman, and child.
Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass.
So with all due regard to Mr. Dershowitz, I have to say this issue of human shielding is totally beside the point, because it doesn't even come into play in this particular situation. The orders from the get-go, denying food, water, electricity, and fuel to the entire civilian population, the order from the get-go to turn Gaza into a place that is not able to sustain human life, the order from the get-go in this battle between the sons of light and the sons of darkness.
He then went on to say, if Israelis don't openly avow this goal, it's because they are afraid that if they expel the Arabs, they will be called Nazis.
Throughout the 1930s and 40s, the years of Nazi persecution and the Holocaust, Jewish immigration to Palestine increased rapidly.
Secret negotiation between the Nazis and the Zionists in 1933, which allowed German Jews and their assets to go to Palestine. Nazis and the Zionists, Nazis and the Zionists, Nazis and the Zionists.